"Baby of the millionaire," cried Nonstop at the restaurant, until Black Girl said what turned him pale. The cries of a baby shattered the calm of the elegant restaurant, like glass breaking on marble floors. Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Waiters shifted uneasily, unsure whether to step in or simply wait for the storm to pass. Victor Langston, one of the city's most admired businessmen, sat at the center of it all, bouncing his infant son in his arms. Dressed in a crisp white suit, he looked every bit the man who was used to being in control of everything, except for this moment. Sweat collected at his temples as his son, Matthew, wailed louder and louder, fists clenched tight, tiny face red with desperation. "Come on, Matthew," Victor whispered, his voice tense with frustration. "Please stop crying. Please." But the pleas only made the child's cries grow sharper, cutting through the air like a siren no one could ignore. Diners exchanged irritated glances. Some sighed loudly enough to be heard. Others shook their heads, as if wealth itself should have bought silence. Leaning casually against the doorway stood Sophie, Victor's fiancée. Her blood-red dress gleamed beneath the lights, commanding attention just as she liked. Her blonde curls framed a face twisted in irritation, her arms folded tightly across her chest. To her, the sound wasn't just inconvenient, it was an insult. "Victor!" she hissed across the table, her voice sharp enough to slice. "Do something! Everyone's staring!" Victor's jaw clenched. "What do you think I'm trying to do?" His words came low, strained, nearly breaking under the weight of her scorn. "You look ridiculous," Sophie shot back, cold and unyielding. "You're supposed to control everything, your company, your staff, your image, and now you can't even handle your own child." Her words pierced deeper than she realized. Victor's chest burned with helplessness, something unfamiliar and unwelcome. He looked at his son again, watching the boy gasp and sob, and for the first time in years Victor felt completely powerless. Then came another voice, small, calm, and sure. "He's hungry." Victor blinked, startled. Sophie turned too, her eyes narrowing. A little girl, no older than 6, stood by the table. Her skin was dark, her braids falling loosely against the shoulders of a faded floral dress that looked far too big for her thin frame. Her eyes, however, carried something sharper than her age, something that made Victor pause. "What did you say?" he asked carefully. The girl didn't hesitate. "He's hungry. That's why he's crying like that." She pointed at the bottle of milk sitting untouched on the table. Sophie let out a brittle laugh. "Oh, for heaven's sake, where did she even come from? Victor, tell her to leave. This isn't a playground." But the girl didn't budge. She stood straighter, her voice steady. "That cry, it's not because he's bored. It's a hungry cry. I know it." Victor frowned, his heart suddenly unsteady. "How do you know that?" The girl lifted her chin. "Because I used to take care of my baby brother. I know the difference between a tired cry, a scared cry, and a hungry one. And that," she nodded toward Matthew, "is hungry." Sophie rolled her eyes so dramatically it was almost theatrical. "She's just making things up. Children don't know anything." But the little girl's tone grew firmer. "I do. And that bottle is too cold. He won't drink it unless it's warm." Victor blinked, caught off guard. He reached for the bottle, touched it, and felt the chill against his fingers. His chest tightened. She was right. "How did you know that?" he asked, a trace of disbelief in his voice. The girl looked down for a moment before answering. "My mama worked nights cleaning offices. When she was too tired to feed my brother, I did it. I learned the cries and I learned how to fix them." Her voice didn't shake. It carried the weight of experience no 6-year-old should bear. The courtyard had gone still. Every diner who had earlier sneered now watched in silence, the scene unfolding like a secret they weren't supposed to witness. Sophie's face hardened. "Victor, don't listen to her. She's nothing but a street kid, probably after money." The girl's eyes flicked to Sophie, then back to Victor. "I don't want money. I just don't want him to hurt anymore." Victor's throat constricted. He stared at his son, who was still wailing, then at the girl. Her words carried a truth Sophie's never did. His voice lowered. "Who are you? Where are your parents?" She hesitated, her dark eyes glimmering. "My name's Amara." Her voice softened to nearly a whisper. "And I don't live anywhere anymore." The words hit Victor like a punch to the gut. His grip on the bottle tightened, his face paling. "Pathetic," Sophie muttered, not bothering to lower her voice. "You're really entertaining this nonsense?" Victor's head snapped toward her, his voice colder than she'd ever heard it. "Enough, Sophie." She froze, shocked by the steel in his tone. A waiter arrived with a jug of hot water, and Victor dipped the bottle inside, his hands trembling slightly. When it was warm enough, he pressed it to Matthew's lips. The transformation was instant. The baby latched on, drinking hungrily, his tiny body easing against his father's chest. The cries that had shattered the night dissolved into silence. Victor released a shaky breath, his shoulders sagging with relief. He looked up at Amara. She wasn't smiling, wasn't boasting. She simply stood quietly, her thin hands clasped together, eyes fixed on the baby, with a sadness that felt far too old for her small frame. In that moment, Victor felt the weight of every gaze in the restaurant on him. Not because he was rich, not because of his status, but because a little girl in a torn dress had just taught him something priceless: how to listen to his child. Sophie's heels clicked as she stepped closer, her red dress catching every eye. "Well," she said icily, "congratulations. The stray fixed it. Should we start applauding her now?" Victor's eyes snapped toward her. His voice carried quiet fury. "Show some respect, Sophie." "Respect?" Sophie scoffed. "Victor, this is humiliating. Your wife has been gone, 6 months? And already you drag me into this, sitting behind a child that isn't even mine. And now a beggar girl is the one saving you from embarrassment. What do you think people are saying right now?" The word beggar made Amara flinch, but she didn't leave. She stood tall, her chin lifted, her eyes fixed protectively on the baby, as though she alone understood his suffering. Victor's jaw tightened, his voice dropping low but carrying across the room. "My wife didn't leave me, Sophie. She died." The restaurant went utterly silent. Sophie froze, stunned by his words. Victor swallowed hard, his voice breaking for the first time that evening. "She was in the hospital for weeks after Matthew was born. She never came home. I buried her 3 months ago, and every day since then, I've been trying to breathe without her. That's why I don't know everything about raising a baby. That's why I made the mistake of thinking I needed someone to fill that hole." His eyes cut through Sophie. "But I was wrong." Sophie's lips parted, but no words came. Her face hardened, as though sympathy itself was a burden too heavy for her to carry. Victor turned back to Amara. His voice softened. "But tonight, this child reminded me of what I really need. Not glamour, not someone ashamed of my son. I need to listen. I need humility." Amara's eyes glistened, her voice barely a whisper. "Your baby just needs you." Victor lowered his head, blinking back tears as Matthew suckled peacefully against his chest. The sound of silence was suddenly more powerful than the loudest cry. Desperate to regain control, Sophie snapped, "So what now? You'll let this homeless girl sit at your table, move her into your home? Do you even realize what people will think? You'll ruin your name, Victor." Amara's tiny fists clenched, though she remained silent. Victor rose to his feet, his son cradled in one arm. Then, to everyone's surprise, he crouched down so he was eye level with Amara. His pristine white suit brushed against the stone floor, but he didn't care. "What I ruin, Sophie," he said calmly, "is the idea that reputation matters more than my child's happiness. Tonight, this little girl gave my son what all my wealth could not: peace." His gaze softened as he looked at Amara. "You said you don't live anywhere. Where do you sleep?" Her answer was so soft he almost missed it. "Behind the church sometimes. Under the bridge when it rains." The weight of her words crushed him. He looked at his son, then back at her. His wealth suddenly felt obscene, meaningless. "Not anymore," he said firmly. "Not while I'm alive." Sophie gasped. "Victor, you can't be serious. You'll take her in. People will laugh. They'll say you've lost your mind." Victor's eyes hardened. Let them laugh. I'd rather be a fool who listened to a child than a man who ignored one." Amara stared at him, unsure whether to believe him. But when he extended his free hand, warm and steady, she let her small fingers slip into his. For the first time, a fragile smile broke across her lips. Victor stood tall, baby in one arm, Amara's hand in his. He didn't look back at Sophie. He didn't need to. Her red dress, her sharp words, her shallow pride, they belonged to a world he no longer wanted. As he walked out of the restaurant, whispers followed, some mocking, others in awe. But Victor didn't hear them. All he heard was the silence of his son resting at last, and the unspoken truth carried by a little girl who had nothing, yet gave him everything. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from all of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.